Something now.
Can you share some of your experiences about discipline, respect, length of school day, role of teacher, etc.?
Now, where do I start with that? Huh? Well,
Wherever you want.
where will I start? I went to one-room school down the East End. We had 3 schools down there. There was the back school was an Anglican school. We used to call it, down where John Bishop, Bill Bishop is now, right across there. Out in front, where the Waft is, out in front was the United Church School. Down on, then you had the Mercer's Cove School. They got that remodeled down there now into an apartment. It was there. Then you had St. Matthew's, up here was Anglican, and you had the United Church in the crossroads where the passage is now. And then you had a Catholic school there by, we see all the cars that in the crossroad, they're on your right. And then in Chestertown, they had the Anglican school. I mean, which one else?
St. Mark's.
Butlerville was a school in Butlerville. Am I missing another one?
College Point.
Well, I know, not over there in Chestertown.
Okay.
Well, College Point had United Church School, right? And then you had a school in the Anglican school. That was the only 2 on College Point. But all those were basically one-room schools, or 2-room schools. The ones I went to in the East End were all 2-room schools, one-room schools. But you had about, like the one I was in, let's take that one. I went to the back school first, to what we used to call it the Anglican school. And I can see it now as clear as yesterday. And the teacher gave me a line of copy with A's like this across the page. And I can see that like it was yesterday. Anyway, and when I was in grade 2, I went back to grade 2, and then the teacher in the front school changed. And we got a man, Wilbur Bishop, who was a university grade teacher. He was well trained. And anyway, we all had to go out there, United Church. And I was in grade 2, and just before, I don't know, it's probably somewhere in April or May, she promoted me. She put me in grade 3. So I went, and the next September, I went out to the front school. And when he went around, he said, "What grade were you in?" I said, "Grade 3. So he put me in grade 4. I wasn't on jumping up to, anyway, she said, and Lizzie mentioned it was, she found out about it and wrote out to Bishop and told him that I was only in grade 3 about 2 months. So he put me back in grade 3. And I was the only one in grade 3. And I was there, and I can see it now. He never bothered with me. He didn't know I was there. One person in one grade, right? And this day, we had people like, John Barrett and Roy Mercer. They're just about all gone. Eddie Mercer died up here last year. He was in that grade, Roy Bradbury, and whatever. Anyway, I was sitting there just before Christmas, and all of a sudden and you used to stand up. You'd have to stand up in front of the teacher. We had classes. You stand up, and we'd read so much, and we'd spell so much, and then we'd have memory verses to repeat, and whatever. And if you didn't, and we had a system like if you missed a word, and I could spell it, I'd go above you in the class. Anyway, I'll never forget it. It was a Silver Skates, Hans Christian Andersen. And anyway, I was sitting there, and all of a sudden he looked around and he said, "Wilbur, stand up here." I stood up. He took my grade 3 book and gave me the grade 4 book. So that's the second time I was promoted, right? Anyway, I stayed there. And we worked up to a one-room school. The difference then is that the basic stuff like math and English was the concentration. If there was any teaching done, was in that. But I liked science. I can't remember anyone doing anything in science. No teaching. Probably they did. Yes. So anyway, but that was the start. But the big thing with the old schools was that we all worked together. Like John Barrett and I was in grade 11, and we worked together at night. We'd get together. If it was French or whatever we were doing, if he had a comma there, I'd have the same comma, right? And that's the way we one helped the other. There was no other way.
That's about discipline.
What was the discipline in the schools?
Discipline in a way has changed. The big discipline years ago was when you go back far, depending on where you want to start. But I remember I was in McPherson, which was one of the big schools in Newfoundland in 1950. And they used the strap. The strap was a big thing then, right? If you misbehaved or whatever, you were liable to get, that's what you get. If you didn't do your lessons or whatever. Back in my grandfather's day, it was worse again. They used to say they used to keep school. If I keep you busy in school, you're not going to get into mischief, right? But half the people were just sitting there because you couldn't get around all these grades and keep everyone. In the morning, there wouldn't be whatever because everybody's doing arithmetic. And that's all changed. Mathematics has gone from being able to count or whatever to do, and to now understanding. Everything has changed. It was more automatic years ago, and I can go back to the same thing in English and all this stuff. It's all completely different than what we did. But a one-room school, you couldn't. That was it. You could only do so much. Teachers could only do so much, and we had to pick up the slack ourselves. But still, some great people come out of those one-room schools. Whereas I went to Memorial, not saying I was great, but I went to Memorial right out of a one-room school. And I was, even when Sandra can remember, they amalgamated over here. And when I went there in 1954, we had 2 grades in a room. Right? We had 7 teachers. And when I left in '88, we had all individual grades. Right? And but that's how it went. But still, the school, you look at Amalgamated up there now. I was thinking about that last night. We didn't have a gym that you could play badminton or basketball or volleyball because you'd be always hitting the ceiling. You remember that? And we had a stage. They could only put a few people up on it. And the curtain we made ourselves basically on cotton reels to go across the whatever. But all those people who went from Amalgamated went into the new Amalgamated, had the big gyms and the labs. I remember I did science. The labs, I didn't have a lab. I had all the stuff out in the corridor somewhere. If I wanted to teach something, I had to go out and find what I wanted. But there's no way I could get around and give everyone a whatever, and work that way. But in the one-room school, one thing we did have in the front school was industrial arts. Irvin was interested in that, and we used to have every Friday afternoon we'd have an hour and a half industrial arts. You make these gadgets like envelope holders, fancy cut with a fret saw, right? Cut out and whatever, right? I don't know, it was, there was more, what's happened today, and like in university and whatever. In my day, there was more togetherness than what we got today. I was in university in it was either 47, 48, or 49. One of those years. I had the book here, cap and gown. And there was 291 of us in Memorial. Now just imagine that. Now there's 20,000 in there. What? And they're going to get us all together now. I had a letter the other day. They're going to get all those who went to Memorial from 1925 to 1960. They're going to have a get-together.